Hello, and welcome to Wadi El Hudi. I'm glad you finally made it.
Hi, I'm Brian Kramer, and I'm going to explain to you how we make maps and 3D models from survey data and photogrammetry at Wadi El Hudi. For any archaeology, it is fundamentally important to record exactly where you find artifacts and archaeological sites. And that's exactly how we start our maps and 3D views at Wadi El Hudi. For the precision mapping, we use a total station. That is a surveying machine that allows you to record locations with laser distance finders and electronic theodolites. Using this machine, we can get precision down to within about a centimeter. And when things are not as sensitive as that, we just use handheld GPS devices. With either of these techniques, we strive to record every piece of archaeological data we encounter in the desert, whether it's photographing an object we find or something that we find when we excavate it out of the dirt. The next step is to get you from finding cool things in the desert to making 3D models out of them. In order to turn any archaeology that we find out there into 3D models, we essentially start by taking lots and lots of photographs of it, using cameras pretty much like these. By taking lots of photographs, we can use them to record the archaeology with the power of math. Yes, math. We use the technologies that rely on the mathematical principles of photogrammetry. Using that technology, we can map the entire landscape just by taking thousands and thousands of photographs. And by using special computer programs built for automating photogrammetry, we get precisely scaled 3D models of anything that we want, of objects, buildings, or even entire landscapes. And in many cases, it only took a few minutes, and sometimes a few hours, or even days, to take the photographs of anything that we want to make a 3D model of. The process of making a 3D model from photographs is quite simple in concept, but it requires a fairly strict field methodology to get it to work right. Essentially, we have to take pictures of a given archaeological feature from all the visible angles possible, trying to catch it in optimal light, maybe in the mid-morning or late afternoon. And the most difficult part is having to get a very good coverage from all those angles. Sometimes some angles just aren't possible. For example, if you're trying to scan something on top of a cliff, you don't get everything that you want. Also, trying to capture an archaeological landscape this way can be a little tricky too. In order to get the best views of the land surface, you have to be above it to take good photos. And since we can't work with drones in Egypt, we've had to find other ways to do this. Essentially, the way that we figured out how to do this is by putting cameras on top of tall PVC pipes looking downward. Using these cameras set on PVC pipes, we can then send teams of archaeologists across an archaeological site, scanning it by going crisscross from one end to the next. With all the photographs that you get out of the site, you can run it through the photogrammetry and it stitches the photos together into one big picture. In the last 5 years that we've been doing this, we've taken over 300,000 photographs. That's a lot of data to process. And for most of these photographs, we have to edit them before we run them through the photogrammetry software. We edit the photos to make the colors and the exposure as consistent and as true to life as possible. It is amazing how many shades of orange, red, pink, or yellow there are in the desert. And everything looks slightly different in different lighting conditions and different exposures. The color correcting is really a huge task, considering the number of photos. But when it's done, you should have little to no transition visible between two different 3D models that were taken at different times of day, or even in different years. The actual processing of these photographs is done in a computer program called Agisoft Metashape, which many archaeologists use. The processing of these photos can take several hours to even several days to finish a typical 3D model, depending on how many photographs that you've given it to work with. Almost every model that we have made of the archaeology is now being brought into one large recreation of the landscape at Wadi El Hudi. And we've been using the gaming rendering software called Unreal Engine 5 to allow people to be able to see it in amazing detail. So the virtual models that we've created from the archaeology are life-size, and the objects in them are real to your actual scale. Right now you're looking at a place at Site 9 where we happen to have created hundreds of 3D models. On the horizon, it looks true to life as well. And that's because we've used satellite images and digital terrain models to fill in the landscape that is beyond the archaeology. This way, we can actually extend what is visible of the virtual model of Wadi El Hudi into hundreds of kilometers into the desert. So using Unreal Engine 5, we've built this virtual world, and we're now populating it with the 3D models that we created of real objects and with virtual characters that we're creating in order to orient you to the space. Our ultimate aim is getting as much of the data as we can into the landscape in near real time. So why have we done this? First of all, it captures a fleeting moment in time when we were able to get to Wadi El Hudi and do the archaeological research. The archaeological sites of Wadi El Hudi are right now undergoing the most serious and destructive changes that they have ever seen in 4,000 years. Modern gold miners have destroyed many of the archaeological sites, and they are generally changing the nature of the desert, from a pristine remote landscape to a scarred industrial landscape, right before our very eyes. Also, we're doing this to help in the interpretation of the archaeology of Wadi El Hudi. This is a region of the desert you can't just visit as a tourist, and even someone who's interested in studying it has a hard time getting there. By creating 3D models of the landscape, we will allow people to get an appreciation of the archaeology there in the landscape, and to understand how the archaeological remains are really tied to it. In order to be part of this future world of digital archaeology, we're now exploring ways of publishing this 3D environment on the internet so that you too can visit Wadi El Hudi and see what we've been finding in this amazing place. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more about the Wadi El Hudi expedition, check out our videos online, our website, and our social media. Please also consider donating to the project. Every little bit helps, and your contribution will help us build the virtual version of Wadi El Hudi.